good afternoon. I don't want anybody to interrupt their lunch, but as we know, this is sort of a working lunch, and we want to utilize our time as best as we can. First of all, I just want to say welcome and hello to everyone. I'm Gaynor Chokas, and I'm the director for the Center for Business and Economic Development, which is housed here at the School of Business on the campus of Georgia Southwestern. And I'm so proud and pleased to have you all here today this afternoon. It's great to see you all here, and as you know, this is the 19th in a series of economic outlooks that we have had and we have provided through the center. And some of you may remember when we used to do this at 7 in the morning. Aren't we glad that changed a little bit? I know I am. So please continue your lunch, and as we begin the program, I'm going to turn the podium over to Dr. Blanchard, the president of our university.
Thank you, Gaynor. Let me, at this point, say welcome to all of you to Georgia Southwestern and this 2014 Economic Outlook Luncheon. Couple points. Number one, as you've heard me say many times before, Georgia Southwestern is committed to this community and doing what it can to help this community. The community's success is basically our success. The community's growth is our growth, so it is very important that we involve. We're a state-supported institution, but have a primary commitment to this region that we serve. The event today is just one of the many ways in which we attempt to exercise that responsibility. Secondly, I would note that basically everything we do here is about economic development. Education is about economic development. So basically every course that we offer, everything we do here in many ways is about economic development, but certainly no one does it better, no one does more of it than the School of Business and the Center for Business and Economic Development. And at this point, I would like to publicly thank Dr. Chokas and her staff at the center, Dean Wilson and her faculty and staff in the School of Business. Also, let me thank Rotary, the Chamber, and our students who are involved in this event today and have helped to make it happen. So again, welcome, and thank you for letting us be a part of this community and letting us play the role that we play in economic development.
We're glad to see such a great turnout today. Here to speak to us today is Billy Ussery. Billy grew up about 90 miles east of here in Wheeler County, which is right down Highway 280. So he's originally a small town person like a lot of us. Billy went on to go to Middle Georgia College in Cochran, where he has earned an associate's degree in science, and attended Auburn University and received a bachelor's degree in engineering, electrical engineering. Billy has 26 years of work experience, 13 at Shawnee EMC, which is in Cumming, Georgia, just north of Atlanta. And he's got 13 years with Oglethorpe Power, which is in Tucker, Georgia. Billy has worked several jobs at Oglethorpe and is currently the Executive Vice President of Member and External Relations. And interestingly, he has spent his entire life around the EMCs and the power business. His father retired from Little Upmulgee EMC. So Billy's a very well-educated, very well-informed person, a lot of experience. And if y'all would, please join me. Let's give a warm welcome to Billy Ussery.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I think we're close enough that I can say War Eagle. I knew I had some friends out there, although I've already had a biscuit thrown at me at the head table. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today just about the co-op program in the state of Georgia and some of the things that are going on with regard to energy and meeting Georgia's current and future energy needs, as well as talk to you a little bit about economic development in the state and our role in that and some of the successes that we're seeing, and hopefully leave you with a positive feeling today. I do want to say I think everybody in the room probably knows Dr. Herron. Dr. Herron was the first person who came in the door this morning, and he and I got to spend about 30 minutes together, and he's already heard my presentation. So if anybody has any questions, he's agreed to take those questions later on. So a little bit about our organization. As Renee said, I'm a part of Oglethorpe Power Corporation, and we are the largest generation cooperative in the country. We serve and provide energy to the 38 electric cooperatives that are scattered across the state. But we're involved, more importantly, with a large family of companies, and it's important to understand our structure. Oglethorpe Power is a generation provider, which means we generate electricity. Our sister company, Georgia Transmission Corporation, is responsible for delivering that power to our member owners, our member EMCs like Sumter EMC and the other EMCs located across the state. We have another company that's a part of our organization called Georgia System Operations. They're essentially the ones with their pulse on the throttle. They're sitting in a control room watching the load as it changes based on weather and other patterns and dispatching generation across the state to meet the load or the energy requirements that are necessary. And then over on the far right, ultimately the power is delivered to our local EMCs, as I mentioned, 38 of those across the state of Georgia. We have another entity called Green Power EMC. They are the entity within our family that is responsible for providing renewable energy to our member EMCs. Important to note that they were the first renewable energy company in the state of Georgia and have been around about 10 years. And I've got a little more information on them as well. And then another one of our family is Georgia EMC. They really have two primary responsibilities. The first is around regulatory and legislative issues and keeping on top of what's going on at the Gold Dome in Atlanta as well as in Washington, and making sure that the laws and regulations that are passed don't ultimately harm our member consumers at the end of the day. But one of the most important parts of what Georgia EMC is involved in that I'll talk a little bit about later is the Georgia Economic Development Authority. We're very active as an EMC cooperative family and community in the Georgia Economic Development Program. We're very focused on bringing new business to the state, and we're very focused on taking our existing businesses and helping them to expand, not only in the state, but helping them look for new customers outside the state of Georgia to produce their product and increase their sales. As Renee said, we are based in Tucker, Georgia. We were formed in 1974 by the electric cooperatives. We're a pretty big company. We have over $8 billion in assets, in generating assets, located in the state of Georgia, and I'll show you a map of that in a second. We're owned by the 38 EMCs located across the state, like Sumter EMC, located here in Americus. Together, the EMCs serve over 1.8 million meters across the state, which comes up to a little more than 4.1 million people, so almost half of the state's population. The red areas that you see on the map are really the various locations of all of our EMCs across this state. The northwest corner, you'll see the white area. There are 3 co-ops up there that are served by the Tennessee Valley Authority and are not a part of the Oglethorpe family. We have service in 151 of the 159 counties in the state. This is a map, obviously, of the state of Georgia, and each one of those circles represents a generating asset that we, Oglethorpe Power, either own and operate 100% of, or that we have a partnership with Georgia Power. The 2 red dots that you'll see are coal plants, and the 2 green dots that you see are nuclear plants. We are co-owners with those power plants with Georgia Power Company. We own 30% of those, and Georgia Power acts as our agent and operates those plants on our behalf. I would be remiss when I'm talking about our power plants if I didn't mention the fact that we are a participant in the new nuclear units that are being built on the Vogtle 1 and 2 site. Obviously, we refer to those as Vogtle 3 and 4. It's the largest construction project in the state's history, and our share of that is 30%, or about $4.5 billion. We have a very vested interest in that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The key that I want to make about that is if you paid attention to the dots on the chart that I just referenced, there were natural gas, hydro, nuclear, and coal. And what has led the state of Georgia to really a successful, reliable energy system is the fact that we do have fuel diversity. It has helped us to maintain very low energy rates in the state compared to our neighbors in other states, and particularly states in the Northeast and the West. I realized this morning when I got here and put this slide up that you people in the room have no idea what it says. So you'll have to bear with me and trust me. But really the point of this slide, if you look at it, is to look at the various regions across the state and see the diversity or the lack of diversity that many of the regions of the country have. Some are very devoted to hydro. If you look in the far west, California has a significant amount of hydro, but they also happen to be experiencing the worst drought in their history right now. You may see some of that in a chart that I'll show later when I compare some power prices of various areas of the country. But I would call your attention to the very bottom right chart, which is the Southeast. The Southeast, and particularly Georgia, has been very well blessed, not only the co-ops, but Georgia Power and the municipals as well, with being able to maintain over the course of the last number of years a very, very diverse portfolio of resources. We have a little bit of coal, we have a little bit of nuclear, we have a little bit of renewable, we have a little bit of gas. And the reason that that's important is because having a diverse portfolio of resources doesn't subject us to the volatility of one single source of fuel. And that has been proven out over our history. And as an electric cooperative system in the state, we're very proud of the diversity that we have in this state. Moving on to Oglethorpe Power specifically, these two pie charts represent the amount of energy that we delivered in 2013 and the amount of energy that we expect to deliver in 2020, and where that energy came from. If you look in 2013, I would specifically call your attention to natural gas. Last year, we got about 24% of our energy from natural gas. In 2020, we'll see that increase by 5% to 29%. If you look at nuclear, we're at 41% in 2013, going all the way up to 51% in 2020. Obviously, the new plants, Vogtle 3 and 4, will come online in 2017 and 18 and provide more nuclear energy, emission-free nuclear energy for our members. I think the other point to make here is that if you look at the amount of energy that comes from coal-fired facilities, in 2013 we saw that at around 30%. We're seeing that drop all the way to 16% in 2020. It's no secret that there are no new coal plants being built in the state of Georgia, and there are none planned to be. And so what this really begins to show is a trend more towards nuclear and a trend more towards gas for 2020. I mentioned in my earlier slide about Green Power EMC, which is our renewable energy entity that is within the state. All 38 of our electric cooperatives in the state are members and participants of Green Power EMC. And as I mentioned before, they began about 10 years ago. It's been an incredibly successful program, albeit right now the amount of energy delivered is relatively small compared to the much larger system. Today they provide about 32 megawatts to our members, and as you can see from this pie chart, about 16 megawatts from waste wood or biomass, about 14 megawatts from various landfill gas generation, small generation stations located all across the state. I call particular attention to solar, which is quite small right now. Green Power EMC currently has an RFP, or a request for proposal, out looking for bids on a 10 megawatt utility scale solar power program. They are nearing the final stages on that. They received some 20 or more bids on that project. They've narrowed it down to about 6, and sometime in the next month or so, we're expecting an announcement from them announcing that they will be entering into a purchase power agreement with an entity for a 10 megawatt solar project. Let me talk just a little bit about Plant Vogtle. It is the largest single project in the history of Oglethorpe Power. Happens to also be the largest single project in the history of Georgia Power. It's a very, very large project, but we're very proud of it. Today it's set to come online, the first unit in 2017, second unit in 2018. It utilizes the newest in technology for nuclear generating resources. As I mentioned before, we have shared ownership with Georgia Power, the Municipal Electric Authority of Georgia, as well as the City of Dalton. We have a lot of confidence in this project. Southern Nuclear is our agent who's overseeing the construction of this project and ultimately to see it come online in 2017. We have a very trusted and experienced partner in Southern Nuclear, and we're really proud to be a part of this particular project. And as I mentioned, it's a huge stake. We're an $8 billion company today. In 2017, we miraculously become a $13 billion company by adding a $4.5 billion resource to our portfolio. So we have a very vested interest in this project and look forward to it coming online. I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk a little bit about the state of Georgia and what we're seeing as far as growth, what we think we'll see going forward. It's no secret. If you've read the paper, if you've turned on the TV, you've seen the governor talking about the state of Georgia being the #1 state in the United States in which to do business. To be a little bit selfish from a utility company standpoint, we'd like to say that we had a little bit of a part in that. Because as you'll see a little bit later on in my presentation, we have some of the lowest electric rates in the nation. And it makes Georgia an attractive place to come from an energy perspective to do business. And some of the things that the governor and the legislature has done make it even more attractive to come from a regulatory perspective. So what are they saying about our economy? Well, I tried to figure it out. You know, I'm an engineer, I'm not an economist. So if there are any economy questions today, I'm going to plead the fifth. Or economic questions, I'm going to plead the fifth. But I did do a little research. The University of Georgia Terry College of Business put out a recent publication, and these are some of the facts that they say about where the state is headed. They're looking in 2014 for an increase in our GDP of about 3%. They're actually saying and reporting that we'll see about a 5% increase in income. They're saying unemployment will level out around 8% in 2014. Home prices will go up, but still won't be quite high enough to meet the appraisals, therefore impacting people's ability to buy homes, impacting people's ability to refinance. Saying that employment will grow by 1.8%. If you look at the region, the Southwest region, what they're saying there is employment will rise somewhere in the range of 0.3 to 1.2%. Well, that's kind of a big gap. But when you look at their information, what they do is they compare the sort of the Columbus region down to the Albany region, and they combine the two. And so as you move a little further north towards the base, as you move a little further north towards Columbus, you see a slightly higher increase. One of the things that they noted, and I guess I may be a product of that very notation, is that they have a concern in this area over the declining population, meaning that it seems to be that a lot of people working age 25 to 49 seem to move away to find other business. And as Renee mentioned, I lived in Alamo, grew up there my entire life, and moved away to Atlanta to find a job. So they cite that as an issue for this area. I mentioned to you that Georgia EMC provides a huge partnership with Georgia Economic Development in looking to bring new businesses to the state. So from a statewide perspective in 2013, Georgia EMC and other partners with Georgia Economic Development worked hard to bring over 350 projects to the state of Georgia, creating over 31,500 jobs, $6 billion in assets. 35% of those were new, 65% were expansions. What's interesting about that is, of those jobs, over 57% of them were actually created outside of the metro Atlanta area. And so I think it's important to note that the Georgia Department of Economic Development, our partners at Georgia EMC don't just focus on the metro Atlanta area. They look hard to bring businesses in all over the state. A couple of other interesting points. 76% of the $6 billion, again, was outside of the metro area. A lot of foreign interest in the state of Georgia. 25% of the projects that were announced were foreign direct investment, means they were people coming from overseas to invest their money in the state of Georgia. And of that, 50% of it accounted, of that $6 billion, 50% of that was from those foreign direct investments. So what's going on in the southwest part of the state? And I'm not going to go through and read all of these points, but based on the Georgia Department of Economic Development, they helped to cite 33 projects in the southwestern part of the state, creating about 1,700 new jobs. I thought it was particularly interesting, and actually went back to verify this number, that in 2013, they estimated $1.07 billion in tourism expenditures in this area, which was up 4.23% from the year before. I thought that was incredible. They confirmed for me that agriculture continues to be the #1 business in the state of Georgia, followed second by tourism. So that's kind of what they're saying. So now what I wanted to do was sort of shift gears and say, well, what are we saying as a part of the electric utility industry? So we of course, have to plan years in the future for new generation resources, and we use a planning tool to do that. And I pulled some information from that. I'll apologize, I've got a bunch of graphs here, but I don't expect you to get into the details on them, but I just want to point out a couple of things for you as we go through them. These are the total number of customers. This graph represents the total number of customers served by the EMCs in the state of Georgia. It also gives a 6-year comparison beginning with 2008 going through to 2013 for what our EMCs were expecting to see as far as customer growth. It shouldn't surprise you that the top line and the one with the steepest slope is 2008. That was before things kind of got a little dicey with the economy. We were predicting 2.6% growth on a compound basis for years to come. What we've seen in each forecast from each of our EMCs over the course of the last 6 years is a continued decline in their projections going forward. But it's not all a bad news story. If you look at this based on our latest forecast, we're still seeing about a 1.5% growth for the entire state of Georgia for the communities that are served by our EMCs. Even in the height of our growth, many states outside of the state of Georgia were experiencing 1.5 at the top of their growth. So I still see, and I believe from our EMC community perspective, that we're seeing positive growth across the state of Georgia. The same is true for energy. We're seeing about a 1.6% increase in the amount of energy that is used per customer. So we are employing energy efficiency methodology, we know that, but how many of us have 3 or 4 TVs now compared to just having one? We're seeing a lot of customers purchase more electric appliances than they have in the past, which helps to go towards the growth of energy. The interesting thing that I also thought I would point out for here, and this is the amount of growth in irrigation, which says to me that farming continues to be a vital part of what goes on in the state of Georgia. This chart actually is the reverse of what I've been talking to you about, because rather than a decline in the number of irrigation customers and a decline in the amount of energy that's being used, we're actually seeing now some of the largest increases that we've seen in recent history, with increases in number of irrigation customers and increases in the amount of energy, which tells us that farming is continuing to be a vital part of these communities. This is the Southwest. It involves this region of the country and represents the number of customers that are expected to come in and become new customers. And again, what I note here is we're seeing about the same growth rate, about 1.5%, for this region as we're seeing on the state as a whole. The same is true with energy, and again, with irrigation, as you would expect, being in the southern part of Georgia, where agriculture and farming is critical to our daily business, we're seeing some of the largest increases in energy given for irrigation that we've seen in quite a long time. So what I would conclude from all that is, I think Dr. Herron said earlier, I'm attributing my whole speech to you. He said, are you going to tell us that things are not bad, they're just less bad? And so I said, I guess that's kind of what I'm going to say. They're not as bad as they were a few years ago. They're not as good as they were in the height of the growth. But we are continuing to see, as an energy industry, positive growth in our communities, positive energy use, and being able to bring on some of the resources to meet those that we've talked about has really been great. So I mentioned to you that I wanted to compare the energy prices of the state of Georgia with some of the other regions of the country. The big bold red line on the bottom represents the cost of electricity in the state of Georgia. The big blue line represents the average cost in the United States. If you look all the way at the top line, it's New York, and you come down, it's California. The reason that I put this here is because, as I mentioned in the very first part of my presentation, diversity of resources has been a critical key to the success of the state of Georgia from an electric energy perspective. We're very proud of what we bring to the table with having not one single resource fuel type, but having a very diverse portfolio. That has allowed us to maintain having very economical rates. That benefits all of us at the end of the day. It encourages businesses to move here. It encourages growth for our regions, and we're proud to have that. Why is it important? This slide was just phenomenal to me when I found it about 6 or 8 months ago as a part of another presentation that was done. This actually takes a typical Georgia family and looks at their all-in energy cost. And by that I don't mean just electricity. I mean electricity, gas, gasoline, the whole gamut of energy. And when you look at this, the typical, and I'll start with the second bar, the typical household income of after-tax income of $10,000 to $30,000 spends an average of 29% of their remaining income on energy. As you go up, obviously it's less, but if you make less than $10,000 after taxes, you spend over 80% of your income on energy. So we, as the utility community, and especially the one for which I can speak to, the electric cooperative community, we get this. Our goal is to continue to provide the most reliable and economical service that we can to our member owners. It's very important to us because it is a substantial part of their disposable income after taxes. So this is my last slide. I'm not going to go through everything that's on there. I use it for one reason and one reason only. The utility industry has a lot of eyes on it, looking at various ways to regulate the industry, to control emissions, to control almost anything that you can think of. And each one of these lines on this chart represents some either proposed or existing legislative activity that has the ability to impose cost on us as a utility. And when you impose cost on a utility, there's nowhere else for that cost to go at the end of the day except to the end-use ratepayer. And so there's a whole myriad of things here that we're focused on as an electric utility on your behalf, on our retail customers' behalf, to try and ensure that what happens at the Gold Dome in Atlanta and what happens in Washington doesn't impose unnecessary cost that cause your cost for electricity to increase, therefore giving you less money to spend otherwise. It's phenomenal when you look at some of these items and the cost that they could impose on us as an electric utility. And particularly as an electric cooperative, being a not-for-profit, member-owned cooperative, when our costs go up based on regulation, we have nowhere to go but to pass those down to the end-use customer. And so it's hugely important to us to keep our eyes focused on what's going on in Washington as well as what's going on at the state capitol. So that concludes my presentation. I thank you all for your attention. I hope I didn't bore you. Anybody has any questions? Dr. Herron's ready? I'm just kidding. I don't know, Gaynor, do I have time for a couple? Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned about the green energy, and you mentioned, I'm really glad to hear that in Georgia, and I heard that 32 megawatt energy can be right now generated from this green energy. How many households they can get light or power through that 32 megawatt?
I don't know. I can't do that math that quickly in my head. 32 megawatts. I'm going to say a few thousand, so not many, really. 32 megawatts as a percentage of our total. Let me put it into perspective for you. Our system total as the electric cooperative industry peaked in a couple of years ago at about 9,300 megawatts. So 32 megawatts of that energy is coming from renewable energy, so not a lot. But the role of our Green Power EMC has been, and they receive proposals almost on a weekly basis. But their goal is to look at those resources and to make sure that they are economical as part of the decision-making process. And so there are always a lot of proposals, but they're not always economical and they're not always reliable. So we're probably most excited about seeing the 10 megawatt solar project come to fruition, because I believe that within a couple of months that will be, and we increase our renewable energy at that time by essentially 30%. Yes, sir.
How does climate change figure into your business plan going forward?
I think that from our business plan, we're closely watching it. It's like trying to hit a moving target right now, because there doesn't seem to be agreement from the politicians on when climate change regulation will be implemented. To be very honest, the numbers that we have as far as how it would impact our cost and what we would have to do to comply are all over the board. They're quite scary. For us, we see ranges of costs going up at the retail level from 25 to 50% based on various types of proposed regulations that have been considered related as it relates to climate change. And so how does it figure into our business plan today? It's very much watch and very much be a part of the discussions and being at the table with EPA, EPD, legislators, and trying to make sure that as they make decisions on climate change policy and on things that ultimately have an end ratepayer impact, that they understand that they understand, and I hope I don't offend anybody by this, but that they understand that the little old lady at the end of the line may see an increase in her bill of 25 to 50%. And so I'd say as far as our business plan is concerned, it's wait and watch and see, but be at the table. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say thank you to the EMCs as well as to Georgia Power. I'm Joe Childers. I work with the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, and you all are facilitators for the Academy for Economic Development. Many of you in this room are part of that. So some of those statistics that you threw out were really important in this area. And I just want to mention that we hold the Academy here in Americus at South Georgia Tech starting on the 13th of this month. If anybody in the room is interested in participating, it's a nomination process. It's not coordinated. I get people in too. So if anybody's interested in that, talk to anybody that's been in the class or just in the hour. But thank you, because it really is an important part of our growth in this area. We have a new EMC representative, Jenny Simons, who will be facilitating the class, and she works with Ken Taylor.
Well, thank you very much. I know that the EMCs and Georgia Power are very active in the economic development of the state. It's vital to what they do. I can tell you from my past experience, and as Renee said when he introduced me, I grew up in the co-op business. My father worked there for 30 years. It's in my blood. I very much believe in what the cooperatives in the state do, and I think they provide a great service to the residents of the state, and I'm just honored to be a part of it. So I appreciate your support very much. Any other questions? You kept asking.
I was just wondering if y'all have a goal in terms of renewable energy, in terms of percentage of that pie chart.
We do not. Our philosophy around that has been to evaluate any and all forms of renewable energy that come to us, but evaluate them on reliability and economics. And I will also say, and dispatchability, which is sort of reliability also. And so we don't want to set a goal because we don't want to put ourselves in the position of trying to meet a goal at the expense of our ratepayers and our customers. What we have said as part of our philosophy with Green Power EMC is where it makes economic sense and where the power can be delivered reliably to our members, we're all for it. But it has to pass and meet those criteria.
Okay.
Any other? Gaynor, how are we doing on time?
We're good.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today.
Hello, as you can see from your program, I'm Dr. Liz Wilson. I'm the Dean of the Business School here at Georgia Southwestern. And on behalf of the Business School, I want to thank all of you for coming. Billy, thank you again for a very informative talk to us today. I want to recognize again Dr. Gaynor Chokas, the Center for Business and Economic Development, and the part they play in helping carry out economic development in this area. They do School of Business and the University proud, and so thank you all again for coming. Thank you, Dr. Chokas, and thank you again, Billy.
I told you guys I'd have you out of here by 1. So my friends sometimes accuse me of being a taskmaster, and I think we did pretty well today. But thank you, Billy. I think your message was on target for our audience, and I think we all like to know that Southwest Georgia is doing good. And in particular with the cost of energy, that really was some good news in the 33 projects that we have in our area and the economic growth and job creation that we have. So thank you for being here. Dr. Blanchard, thank you so much for your continued support of the center and for me. The Rotary Club, President Jacqueline, thank you so much for co-sponsoring our event today. Enactus students, wave, raise your hand. There they are in the back. My Enactus students served as our host today, and they did a great job. And if you guys need some more information about our activities and our projects, please see me. We're excited about our upcoming year. Dean Wilson, again, thank you for your support and of me and of the center as always. And with that, we are adjourned. Have a great day, and I hope to see you next year for the 20th Annual Economic Outlook Luncheon. Thank you.